How does form follow function in branding design? Let's talk about it. A few years ago, I shopped for a tool to help me get rid of dandelions in my lawn. I have an aversion to herbicides, and snipping the tops of the dandelion plants doesn't kill them. The roots, which are several inches deep, must come out. I came home with the Dandelion Digger that looked both sturdy and elegant, ostensibly a good design from a respected brand. But when I went to use it, I found that getting each dandelion out was much harder than I had expected, and it left gaping 2-inch holes in my lawn. The next day, I exchanged the tool for one that wasn't as expensive, nor as attractive, but was easy to use and left much smaller holes, more like the ones you get when you aerate your lawn. Since the primary function of the tool was not appearance or fashion, I was fine with the way it looked. How it worked getting the dandelions out was the most important consideration, as well as how my lawn looked afterwards. One of the most ubiquitous maxims in art and craft is form follows function, and it contains a great deal of truth. If a form impedes the function or creates new problems, it is a poor design. While it is not wrong to reevaluate the specific function we might be seeking, the form we choose had better not impede that core function. What if I glued multiple thumbtacks onto a bicycle seat to keep the rider from slipping? It might keep the rider from slipping, but I don't know anyone stupid enough to think it was a good solution. Who would want to sit on such a seat? People who mistakenly define creativity by whether or not it is new and different might give it full marks, but that's just because no one had ever been silly enough to try it before. It is sometimes easy to get distracted from the essential function of a creative project. This is especially true when the aesthetics are also an integral part of that function, as with corporate identity or branding. But aesthetics are not the only function of a corporate identity. Clear thinking must override gut impulses in this area. What is the function of a corporate identity? Here again, it is important to get our vision straight. The functions of any corporate identity are: 1. To be seen clearly and recognized instantly. 2. To appropriately and positively represent the business or organization or product being identified. 3. To be consistently reproducible and maintain clarity across all media. 4. To be flexible enough to be used in a wide variety of design and media environments. If we create a design that fails in any one of these 4 functions, we have failed to create a workable branding design, period. Some designers in our industry know instinctively how to make solid, useful brand identities. Unfortunately for most others in the graphic design industry, even among the biggest and most expensive brand agencies in the world, the process is hit and miss. Some designers seem fixated on doing something that has never been done before, not only in their specific design, but in the very approach. Perhaps they believe that because they produce something new, they have been terribly creative. What they may forget to do is test their finished identity design against the 4 functions of a corporate identity. If it doesn't pass all 4 of those tests, such a creation shouldn't even be presented to the client. Maybe the reason why people never used that approach for a logo before is that it doesn't work for a logo. Rather than being a mark of creativity and making an identity in a way that has never been done before may be the height of folly. Remember that, in the end, creativity is not doing something new, but rather the ability to find the best way to solve a problem, period. Creativity is often characterized as a new way of doing something. That is because a new problem sometimes requires a new solution. That's why we notice it. But the core of creativity is not that it is new. That's a common fallacy of logic called association with causation, a false notion that because 2 events occur together, one causes the other. Corn and pumpkins often ripen at the same time, but the corn does not make the pumpkins ripen, or the other way around. For any problem, there may be many new and different approaches that will not provide a solution. Theoretically, only a few, or perhaps even only one approach will succeed. A problem does not always reside outside of the status quo. It may touch that circle tangentially. This can mean that the most suitable solution may not require anything new to solve it. This may be an irritant to those who desperately aspire to the notion that creativity must be new and different at all costs. They insist that newness is a part of any solution. This fixation is almost epidemic in creative fields like graphic design. The tragic flaw is that the new and unusual approach may fail to solve the problem at hand. Sad to say, many design annuals abound in examples of this kind of bleeding-edge design. The cutting edge that has gone so far that it doesn't work, like my example of thumbtacks on the bicycles. In other words, where the form does not follow the function. And if a design doesn't function in the client's best interest, it isn't truly professional, even if the designer gets paid for it. Sooner or later, the client will recognize that the design just doesn't work and go elsewhere for a new design that does work. This happens all too often in the field of branding design, but it doesn't have to be that way. The core principles of identity design are now understood. Designing identities that work in all situations is eminently doable if you know the core principles of good branding design, which is coming up in future lessons. For more information, go to logodesigntheory.com. If you found this useful, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it with anyone who needs to know about logo design.